Hi, it's Graham, the Mould Hunter. This is a short video, nice and simple, about the importance of ventilation, especially in smaller properties or where you're in student accommodation where you're within one room. So, what I'm going to talk about is why ventilation is important. Well, basically, the reason it's important is that we produce a lot of water out of our bodies. The human body can exhume, would you believe, anywhere between 1 and 3 litres of water a day. And that is one day. Thinking of that in mind, we also we boil kettles, we do our ironing, not everybody, and our washing, we dry our clothes. See it many times. If you think about it, when you take your washing out of the washing machine, it probably weighs about 5 or 6 kilos in damp weight. You dry it on your radiators in your room or wherever you happen to dry it, because in the winter months that's what we tend to do. You may dry them outside, you may have a dryer, but a lot of people don't have that facility. So they kind of have to just do and are restricted to what they've got. So again, it's about 5 or 6 kilos. Well, if you put it back in the basket and weigh it after it's dried, or just dried, there's a couple of kilos of water gone. And where does that water go? Well, it basically goes within the property that you're in. And if you're not ventilated, it's trapped. So why does it get trapped in our properties? Well, most people are familiar with the trapping of moisture. Is you get up in the morning, especially if you've got a closed door, you haven't got your window open, and you look at your glazing on your window and it's misted up. We have all this moisture in our property, and I have these bottles here, and one of them, and you can actually see there's water on the outside of it because it's a cold surface. So the saturation of moisture in the air is returning back to its water, the dew point, on the bottle. But you can physically see and touch that, and I can feel it with my hands. Now, we live in houses, and they are surrounded by brick, plaster walls, lime, porous surfaces that absorb water. So if I'm in this property and this is a plaster wall and I take a breath and the moisture from my breath, I go like that on the wall, you don't see anything. But if I was to do it to a glass surface, like a window or a mirror in the property, and they're slightly cool, you'll see a mist. You can write your name in it like we do. But here, the difference is that this surface absorbs it. And this is the foundation for mould growth in most homes. Water, moisture. So it's important to ventilate. It's also important to think about having the right temperature in the room as well. And you need both. The reason being is that if these walls get too cold, very much like the bottle, they become too wet. So they need to be warm. If this was a warm surface, this kettle here, it's bone dry on the outside, but it is warm. That's warm water in there at the moment, it's cooled down. So the moisture in the air is not attracted to it. But this surface is cold, and the moisture in the air is attracted to it. And that's what happens with your walls. So temperatures are also very important with ventilation. So going back to ventilation, how do we get this out? Well, it's quite simple. You open your windows and you let it out. Not for 1 hour, for as long as you possibly can. Ventilation requires you to open a window and let the air out. Now, in certain accommodation, sometimes people do aeration. And the difference with aeration is that they've got all the doors locked, they open their window, and the air doesn't move out very quickly. And I can only explain that as if you imagine I have a glass tube in my hand and I blow smoke in it and hold my hand at one end. The smoke will lay in the tube. If I want to remove the smoke, I pull my hand away, I puff, and it blows through. So ventilation is venting, to vent through. So if you're going to vent your property correctly, it's important that you can get some sort of through draft. It can be difficult in certain properties merely because it's a flat and it's on an east or a south or a west wall, and they'd have to go and ask their next door neighbours to open their doors. But in an accommodation where you are all living, all you would need to do is go to your windows, open them slightly every day, 9 o'clock in the morning, no matter what the weather, just slightly, open all your doors, except for your bathroom, and everybody else, if they were to open their little windows, just a slight amount. On the UPVC windows, there is a trickle vent position, which you can actually open and lock the window. It will be locked, but it will give a vent that will allow your property, whilst you're out in the day, to ventilate and get rid of the moisture. Yes, it's going to cool down the property slightly, but hopefully your walls are nice and warm. The difference is that when you come back in the evening, you close all your windows, you pop your heating on, and your heating will start to work beautifully and better, because convection does not, or heat convection doesn't work very well when you're within damp walls and you have a damp environment. It's difficult. Humans, we feel the damp. We generally don't feel the cold straight away. This is quite common when I go into properties and I have my moisture meters in my hand, and I say to people, what is the temperature in your property? And it'll be 19 degrees. And they'll tell me, well, it's about 10 or 11 degrees, because they're feeling the cold. And then I turn around and I go, well, it's 19, but your humidity is up in the 80s or 90s. So they are actually feeling the moisture content. That's what's making them cold. So the science is, if I can remove that moisture content, especially if I'm out in the day and everybody helps move it, when we all come back and close up our windows, the house will be ready to get warm. Now, to heat dry air happens very quickly. You've not got damp walls, you've not got damp air, so suddenly the property is warmer, and it does work. If the moisture outside is higher, we have that problem in the coast, we do get higher moisture content outside, I would still ventilate, but then I may want to run one of these. I generally run a dehumidifier in my house, and I have done for many, many years, and I use it to manage my property when I've got the windows closed, when I want to dry my clothes. And what it's doing, it's cleaning my air too. They have filters in them. How cool is that? So I have a management system within my house dealing with my moisture that I'm producing if I happen to forget to open my windows. And yes, there's a cost. It's not a great deal. You buy very, very, very low energy units now. They're not expensive to run. And the benefits are, I mean, drying clothes is just one of the massive benefits of having a dehumidifier. I will talk about dehumidifiers later. I always recommend 20 litre, and I'll explain that one in another video. So we'll go through that. So ventilation is very important as long as you can. When you're doing it, keep your bathroom doors closed. They have their own systems. Assumedly, they have extractor fans, and let the air pass through your house. And what you're doing is, we're not thinking about heat, we're thinking about moisture and getting that moisture out. And if you get that moisture out, this mould will not grow. Because the rule of thumb is, if there is no moisture, there is no mould. It is simple as that. It cannot live without moisture. With that, I'm going to do a quick test, and I'm going to aerate this property, and then I'm going to ventilate this property, and we're going to see what happens and which is the quickest way. So remember, aeration is when you have your door closed and you open your windows every day, and there's a slow release. That takes time. What you want is a quick removal and a constant removal. That's what you want. So currently it's 15 to 16 degrees in here, and we're looking at 78% moisture content in this room now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to aerate the property. So I'm just going to open the windows. I'm going to wait a little bit and see if I can get these numbers down. So I've opened my window. We're just aerating. There's no through draft. And we're currently, as I said, between 78 and 80% moisture content, 80% moisture content. Now this can also be dictated of what the moisture content is outside, because sometimes it can be quite high especially on these coastal areas where I actually live. And there we go, it's 81%, it's climbing. So I've got the window open now and not much is happening. In fact, not a lot is happening. And that's because I don't actually have ventilation. All my doors, exits and everything are closed, and I have one window open and I have no through draft. So I'm relying on the wind to be, to get in here and try and push this wind and push this moisture out. Well, we can see straight away it's not working very well, and that's with the window open. So that's definitely not going to help if I want to reduce the moisture in this property. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to ventilate. So I'll be opening that door, which leads to the outside, and I'll be opening a window over there, and we hopefully can get these numbers down, because currently they're going up, which tells me it's a damp morning. It's at 78%. The windows are open that side, and I'm about to open this door here, which gives us full ventilation. And I'm hoping that we should get a drop in moisture quite quickly. 76. We are already down 6%, and that's happened in seconds. And in front of you, we're now down to 72%. So already we've nearly got a 10% reduction in moisture in the property just by simple ventilation, through ventilation. So you can see the importance that aeration doesn't work so fast, hardly works at all, and ventilation works very quickly. The good news is because we have air movement, like drying your clothes outside on a cold day, which you can do because there's movement of air, any moisture in your walls is also being dragged out. So it's drying your walls. Now, if your walls were very warm, i.e. you've got your property at a constant 19 degrees and above, that moisture will be in the air. So you'd have just removed it all quite quickly. Now, yes, the temperature is dropping in this room, which it will do because it's cold outside this morning. But the difference is that if you have just a trickle vent going and that air is moving, a lot of the walls will hold their heat. The property will hold its heat. So when I come back at the end of the day and we shut all the windows, and as I said to you, you pop your heating on because the air is dry, convection is increased, it's better, doesn't feel damp, smell better, it's fresh air, your property will warm up very, very quickly. Which means it'll be very warm, it won't get clammy, and also means you'll probably switch it off because it's too hot. So you can actually offset the cost if you're running a dehumidifier, like I am. Is ventilation important? Well, you saw the science right in front of you, just by opening a few windows or a door and a small amount of ventilation. Yes, it may cool down slightly, but later on I can close up, I can heat up very quickly, the walls will warm up very quickly because they're dry. It's very difficult to make warm walls when they're wet, and you should have a mould-free home eventually. So thanks for watching, and see you on the next video. Take care, bye bye.